Oh, this is Doc, aka Dr. Larry, aka Ube Lashley, aka El Hijo de Dr. Swagner Jr., aka Crying Tiger Mask, aka Royal True Orange Cassidy, aka Cersei Lannister, aka Cherokee Diaz Wong, aka the king of this stuff, aka your host, Dr. Larry. And I have with me mi primo, mi pareja, mi ídolo, Números de America. What's up, Arturo?
Not much. I think I got our tag team name now. We're gonna be Los Hijos del Cuco. Uh, uh, like, no, we're gonna that's the topic we were talking about, like cryptids and like how people like the Filipinos and Puerto Ricans sing their kids to sleep talking about the monsters gonna come and eat them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, let me do the Spanish intro too. So ahora aquí con las noticias del momento, Doc y números de América. Um, I reached out to Doc and said, "Hey, Doc, we got to talk about some shit because some stuff went down these last few weeks, and we did a lot of audio, but we gotta get into like some of the
Yeah.
hot news
Yeah, like
of
Buster Keaton.
wrestling.
Like, Buster, oh man, Buster Keaton, Buster Douglas. I think I'm saying the wrong guy's names, but we are on fire. We are getting hot, hot, hot. Um, and later on in this episode, you're gonna hear our reviews for King of Pro Wrestling and of course AEW Dynasty, which is the big pay-per-view on the weekend and the big pay-per-view last weekend, because you're gonna get a two for today. But I decided at the top of the show we're gonna do some news break stuff. And one of the things that this show has been calling for over the past, month or so is one Mercedes Monet matching the Ultimo Dragon record. Now what happened?
Well, no, the whole thing is the story is we want her to we want her to win it, and I want her to win it I want when she breaks the record, I want Ultimo to give her the belt, and I want Ultimo and Mercedes, you can make it happen. I want you and Ultimo dancing the CEO dance in the ring, right? Like you know the people to make this happen. We got to make it like the culture needs you and Ultimo kind of like celebrating in ring with all the belts. I think that's like that's just so pro wrestling. We gotta do that. Like,
Yeah.
and if it's at the Dome, it's even better.
And also like we're talking Ultimo Dragon. We're talking like, TV Asahi wanting like big stars for that Wrestle Kingdom shows.
That's yeah, we yeah, yeah.
And like, having
Do it.
yeah, dude, having Ultimo Dragon show up, get Separados on there. I love that song so much.
Yes.
And like man, imagine like what you need to do if you can find them is like have the guys who all competed in the J Crown tournament, right? And they're holding all the Mercedes belts for the entrance. I think Carl, you do that, right? You get like all the guys from the tournament. You can get them. I think most of them are alive. Yeah, I think most of them are alive, and then you can have like, of course, in the front you have Sasuke, Liger, and Ultimo as the guys who held the Drake Crown, right? And you could even like include like guys like Dean Malenko or whoever like AEW has like as far as like the cruiserweight champions, because like that kind of sort of counted as far as the
Well, we had can we get Mercedes presented with the first female day crown?
oh man, we were gonna call it the M
We
Crown,
gotta give her the what?
the M Crown,
Oh,
bro. There,
the M crown. Yes, yes.
yes,
Yes, you
because
can get the M crown. Like, yeah, we give Mercedes the M crown at the Dome. This is how you book. This is how you get it done. This is why we are Los Hijos del Cuco. We got it. And like Mercedes, got you. Like this is what you like. Just the M crown and just like ceremony. And I love the twist of just having all the people who competed on the J crown. That's awesome.
like
Let's
she's been
make it the
having.
M crown.
Yeah, dude, because she's been having these entrances with like all the guys, right? All these like, for she had the sexy man entrance that was like a riff on when Ultimo and like Liger and Sasuke had the bikini base for their entrance, and she had them for Forbidden Door. So like, imagine and All Out, and then imagine like, and she had the cheerleaders also, and I kind of like associate the cheerleaders sort of like with same thing. So then now having like the guys who competed for the J Crown, and like you could have like I know that guy's still alive. Remember the circus introduction guy for New Japan? I know he's still alive. Oh man, imagine having him do the introduction with the full like, circus ringleader outfit. Oh, and like doing like, Mercedes one day CEO. Like and like you have the whole thing, this Ken-san.
Yeah, like, yeah, I mean, like, it's perfect. I think it's like, oh, the anniversary was established August 5, '96, so we're on, like, we're 30 years on, right? Like, it's like 30 years ago, it was the J crown, now it's the M crown.
Yeah. Then
I love it.
yeah, dude, and she's gonna wear the Eddie Guerrero Black Tiger mask again, like she does for the Stardom shows. And
That's awesome.
she's gonna wear the Black Tiger gear again for that, And like Sayuri is like the perfect opponent for her, We talking about Filipinos. Sayuri is is amazing. I think it's gonna be the IWGP because they want the branding of IWGP. Unless like they really go crazy and have at least Saya versus Mercedes. And that would be crazy. But I don't think they will.
No, I mean, like, yeah, no, it makes more sense for it to be like the IWGP versus the like if you're gonna do it, like that's the way to do it. Like make it like a traveling like belt. But yeah, no, the M crown is just it's that's like one of your better like Doc. That's one of your that's a primo idea. Like it
Uh,
just it just works so perfectly, right?
We gotta
Like make it like a traveling like multi belt crown. Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome.
We gotta we gotta make sure Rocky hears this, dude. Come on.
And to like him and like, yeah, you just book it and like, yeah, that's the but it is perfect for like for that show and it's gonna be like a big opportunity and you can like set it up
Yeah.
and it lines up with everything else.
Yeah.
So what do you want to cover next? Like,
You
your topic, man.
Well, because like, we're just talking about it, I'm just gonna hit it with this because, uh, ticket sales for Wrestle Kingdom are going insane right now. And it's coming off the back of like Aaron Wolf, the retirement for Tanahashi. And to really clinch like more people coming, they announced like a big match for Saya Kamatani, the biggest TV star in wrestling right now. They're
Saw that like they're not messing around. They immediately announced Saja. It's like for like they announced her like yeah we're gonna draw this out. He's bringing the house down. Now we don't know what her match is gonna be, but like it'll be interesting, like, I don't I do wonder if she's getting a cross promotional match or if she's, like, working with somebody inside, there's a couple people in AEW that might be interesting for her if they're looking for kind of like a cross promotional thing. Like, Tony might be a really interesting matchup for Saya, and it could be, like, real fun and real interesting because Tonya goes there, right? Like, having her I've all the respect in the world for Tony Storm, and she would step up for that kind of event, and I would love for her. Like, again, can also be one of the, other Stardom, opponents, but I do wonder if, like, for that, they want some sort of, like, show they do seem to want, like, some sort of showcase when they do, these, like, Storm
yeah,
matches that, like
yeah. Yeah, it might be a tag match, they'll probably like have a Zumi Starlight Kid, like they're big stars on the Bullzilla. They're probably gonna have like the young girls that they're going to build the future of Stardom on there, not the future of Stardom Champ. And like having like her confirmed right now, Aaron Wolf is confirmed with versus Evil. I'll talk a little about it. And like having like these stars on that show already announced, and we know that Tanahashi is gonna be there. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. But it's just amazing, man. It's just amazing. And there's another stuff that we'll get back to it because there's other things that we got to talk about because there's this big confusion about the Nielsen's and uh how they're being recorded because BJ Bethel had reported on Nielsen numbers being sort of like jumbled up, and then Andy Nimity was actually doing a study on the Nielsen and like how it's sort of like numbers are
so
retracted.
this the story the way the story goes is essentially they wanted so Nielsen's been having problems. Actually, I wrote articles like 2 or 3 years back talking about how Nielsen had lost their accreditation. Because they and I wrote this back in Voices of Wrestling way back when, and it essentially the way they were measuring stuff was off. It was it didn't capture all data properly. The way to kind of think about it is essentially they were doing the equivalent of landline polling. They would basically like take the boxes they have in different places and use the polling to kind of estimate what was going on. But given how things have changed, they didn't have a good read on like the broader populace. So they wanted to bring in more data sources from like cable companies and different other places and people who are measuring what's going on and actually like come up with a model that was more accurate. But they had cache issues, so it was like a real problem for them to actually like get the hardware to get it in place. And so they ended up doing what they called the big data project, which is they integrated all these sources and like they use this to come up with a model that kind of simulates what they used to do, right? And kind of like it uses hard data to kind of try to estimate what actual viewership is, right?
Yeah.
Um, and when they deployed this, right, they deployed this. It was a whole thing, big launch, beginning of October. Oh, we're gonna go full live. One of the things that was broadly reported was like, oh, wrestling and similar shows are gonna suffer. The viewership is not as good as we've reported it for the past 4 or 5 decades. Now, I didn't think about it at the moment. I was like doing 5 other things, but like, and Andy kind of like Andy from WrestleJ kind of reported and wrote that went through the entire kind of like algorithm.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, there's a thing called the ghost effect. So the ghost effect is, or the ghost boxes is the way you measure it out. I mean, if Doc, have you been on Netflix and if you're watching, like, if you leave the show on if you leave Netflix on like one of these shows and you binge watching, after a certain amount of time, Netflix will go, "Hey, are you still there?" Right? So Netflix will ask for the interaction or go into standby mode. So one of the reasons it's doing that is because the way these boxes work is they can't tell when the TV is on. They can not for everything. They can't tell when every TV is on. So they can tell what the cable box is on. But a lot of people will leave the cable box on and just turn off the TV. So effectively what they do is they try to see if you're interacting with the remote control, turning on the volume, turning off the volume, moving the menu, changing the channel.
Mm.
And if you don't do that over 90 minutes, then they think you're a ghost and you've turned off your TV. You're not there, which is again why Netflix will ask you, "Hey, are you there?" Because they're essentially trying to like confirm that you're there so that they can count you as a viewer, right? So they don't want to like they want to be able to say that no, that wasn't a ghost, that was an actual person. So essentially the algorithm, the way that works is after 90 minutes, it just shuts you off and doesn't count you. And there's a note when you look at the way that algorithm was created, like in the 90s and how it is. It's like, hey, we can't do this for like sports shows that go over 90 minutes because people will put the sports show on, right? They'll put NFL on and leave it on for 6 hours and not touch the remote control for anything. And like when there's a break or a commercial, they're getting a beer or getting a pizza, but they're still watching they're watching the game. But effectively, you know what else is more than 90 minutes? Wrestling and UFC and some other things. So when Andy kind of went and asked, said like, "Hey, could this be a problem for wrestling shows?" And he asked Nielsen, and Nielsen went like, "Well, we're gonna check, right? Give us a couple of days to check." And then after, like a day later, Nielsen goes, give us 2 weeks, and we'll get back to you." Um, and kind of the way we're reading this, and there's other things that happen around this, but the way we're reading this, essentially, like I'm assuming that what happened was Nielsen went they ran their big Hadoop. Hadoop is the big data query kind of like program. They ran a Hadoop query. They compared the raw numbers for wrestling and UFC and some of the other stuff to the raw numbers for like NBA, MLB, and went like, wait a second, shit, we're throwing out more viewers than that. Drop of 30% that you're seeing is Nielsen wrongly throwing people out, probably. And so they probably went like, oh crap, we need to fix this. And initially I was like, probably they went to fix it over 2 weeks, but then immediately after that, like it broke that they were like they're being threatened with losing accreditation. What I suspect happened was once they figured out that it was a mistake, right? They started getting pressure from the people who own the rights to the sports, like Ari Emanuel and Nick Khan and all these people like who are very influential in like that world started like putting pressure on them. They're like, "Hey, man, fix it!" Right? So my actual expectation now is the Nielsen ratings. Everyone just panicked about like, "Oh, wrestling is not as popular. It's fast." Like wrestling's probably going to end up getting a boost out of this because effectively, if you look at the data for like Dynamite as an example, Dynamite on TBS was coming on after the Big Bang Theory, so like it had like a 2-hour block of programming. It's very popular than like Dynamite. And if you look at the quarter hours for Dynamite, Dynamite very much looks like a show that's getting docked every 15 minutes. Like this is historical. Getting docked 15 minutes by people getting dropped off. But if you think about it, the people just like had Big Bang Theory on and then left it on, like once you hit 90 minutes, every 15 minutes, a bunch of people hit 90 minutes and get dropped off if they're not touching the remote. So effectively, that's kind of funny. Like I don't know if they fixed something, but it was kind of funny that this week the Collision had higher demo ratings than Collision at the 10 o'clock hour had higher demo ratings. Yeah, I don't know. Which is kind of funny. They didn't have more auto viewers, but they had higher.
Like, I think this is what we're gonna see going forward because they like the tailgate stuff. They like that 3rd hour of Dynamite is doing really great at the 10 PM slot for them. I think they did like 400K. That's the estimation for I think this week. And that demo was really good. They're raising the demo on Collision. That's insane, man.
One of the ongoing conversations or discussions I've had is like when I say, "Hey," and this is ties into the VJ Bethel and his report on the HBO numbers. Is like, where did all these HBO viewers come from? And I think some of it is the HBO numbers are actual. So when HBO tells you that like X number of people were watching, it's yes, X number of people were on their app watching, and they ask, "Are you still there?" So effectively, these are real viewers who are watching real hours on HBO. And I think what's happening is I think what was really happening is the viewers were probably getting undercounted because of that shadow box scenario, because, like, really, the shows that are going more than 90 minutes that were being affected, a lot of them, you think about the percentage of shows that are actually, like, that long, it's wrestling shows, UFCs, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I do think that effectively there were some viewers that, like, were just not being counted before, and then when you did the switch, you're actually seeing the entire world of viewers. And I think also, and again, also as people kind of like because of as we shifted to this world where like it's more accessible on HBO, higher quality, you have seen also a uptick in business. So I do think like when all this is said and done, we're gonna see more viewers, and that's gonna align with kind of what we've seen with pay-per-view numbers and kind of with
Yeah.
big stadium numbers. Now there's a whole other discussion around kind of why live attendance can be kind of shitty. Although that is a more controversial. Some of it is by choice, but some of it is like I don't think they're doing that. But like we're not gonna get into that one. That's a that's a more long form for another one where we can kind of like I have some ideas about how like live live shows should be run for TV. But that's a whole other thing. But like the point being that like it's funny because nobody pushed back. Like if I was doing analysis, right? And all of a sudden I come up with a number that's different from what, like, all these other scientists have had for 50 years. The first thing I'm gonna do is not put out a press release. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna double check my damn numbers, right? So this is why you don't
Yes.
code with AI, kids. Like, and if you code with AI, you need to double check because AI won't say, "Hey, wait, this is weird. I'm getting a result that's different." Like, if somebody like Mara, who we both know, and she's been on some of our discords with us. She's a writer for Rolling Stones, music critic, and like she shared this with us, and I was like laughing. I was like, "No, but you were right. It's this thing where like Copilot AI on Excel adding it was like 1 + 2 + 3 equal to 15, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm like, this is why you have to like have somebody like double checking these assumptions because AI will like dive headfirst into like a cliff, right? And not consider that, hey, maybe wait a second, like, hey, maybe I should double check my stuff. Which is
Yeah.
this
The over reliance, the point of AI is to follow these you're following the
yeah,
algorithm into it's just stupid to me. You gotta recheck your
it will
math.
make it will make very easy mistakes and charge headfirst into them and, like,
Yeah.
just completely insist, like it's like imagine Hulk Hogan doing your code or your math, right? "Yeah, brother, there are 26 hours in a day, right? Like, when I fly to Japan, brother,
I did 500 days in a year, dude.
yeah, 500
500 days.
brother, I worked 500 days because I was traveling, like, against the sun, so I was gaining time, I was time traveling, man." Sorry. A bit like Te Bill and Ted, bit Hulk Hogan there, but, like, yeah, you get my gift. Like,
Yeah, bro. And
it
I
is kinda
love
fun it is kinda
like I love Back to the Future. So the whole
yeah,
concept of
yeah.
him going back and like gaining time as he's going and traveling against the sun, you know, brother, I got to get up to 88 miles per hour to make sure that the.
brother, nobody had ever worked 500 days in a year.
Oh, I was the only
Hey
guy
man, the
who
first
could.
Hulk Hogan, the first IWGP champion.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and like we talk about like things like this, right? And I love Ultimo Monet, and we talk about like people who jumped from WWE to AEW, like the one Ultimo Monet. And I know Miss Monet, you're lovely, you're beautiful, you're smart. I know you're listening to us because we were the only ones asking for you to be this the belt collecting Ultimo Dragon champion since like I think we did that once she won like the strong belt and the TBS belt. I think that's when we started doing this stuff. And like it's funny to see it pay off. Oh, wink wink. Anyway, there was another guy, right? Disappeared off the roster page,
Ah,
and we're gonna talk about it. So you had to take on one El Idolo, Andrade, and
Andrade el ídolo. Ídolo de la nación. Actually, Andrade's a guy who it's kind of funny. I do think that Andrade doesn't get the respect or the respect or recognition he deserves. He's a significant figure. He's a
especially
great
when you
worker and a guy I think at his peak, like the thing that frustrated with me when he left AEW was, and I thought he was ready just to have his ace run. He was ready, like if he had, I understand why he left for personal reasons. I get it. I understand it. I mean, he's trying to, save his marriage. I can respect
yeah,
that, but it is kind of just thinking back on it and thinking about where some of the promotions where he's worked before were, he really would have gotten like top work and probably like I mean, I
he
honestly
would
think they would. I think they would have found them work at the top of the card in New
yeah
Japan, like CML and AEW.
he would have been
At the level
doing
he was working.
he would have been a higher card of Bandito. Like what Bandito's doing now is probably what they would have been doing with him in December of 2023 if he had just stayed and like decided, oh, I'm gonna work CMLL. I'll probably work the New Japan Cup, that kind of thing. If he had stayed in that sort of orbit, we'd be having a whole different discussion right now because that C2 that he did, and he put guys over, he worked and he worked his ass off, and it's just
No,
it,
his work was incredible in that. But let's get to the situation. So the
yeah,
situation is that Andrade was fired or released from WWE, right? So he was fired. He is not on the WWE payroll, so he's not. When that happened, the expectation and him and Tony was that Tony Khan AW was that he was not on the contract. He's not getting any money from them, and he was simply just fired, release. He was free to work, and so he showed up on Dynamite. And I think at that moment, TKO decided, wait a second, we don't want that. And so they decided post facto that no, we fired him with calls. Now the other part was like, so when he was let go from TKO and WWE, they put out this whole hit job on him, like, oh, he failed these drug tests, and he was a terrible person, and it's just the typical WWE hit job on somebody who
yeah,
leaves like that.
the
And
hit job.
they thought maybe that would scare off AEW. And AEW we're like, no. I mean, like, I'm assuming AEW, probably CML, and probably even New Japan were like, yeah, we'll take Andrade. We'll love to have Andrade back. Like, he's a draw. He's a great worker. He's a star. We like him. And so when they did that, I suspect that TKO probably sent a notification, like saying like some sort of cease and desist letter to a legal letter to AEW and Andrade, notifying them like, no, we fired you with cause. So the contract says that you have a 1 year non compete in wrestling now. And I think Brian Alvarez kind of covered this really well. Like, this would not stand up in court. Like, the thing about this is, like, you put that in the contract, and then the assumption is, like, typically you're going to the person's not going to fight it, because essentially the time it takes to fight it is going to be longer than the cost, be longer. And typically wrestlers don't have the legal representation to actually fight this properly. In this particular case, that's not the case. In this particular case, the people who have received the notification do have the contract and the wherewithal and the influence to like fight this and understand that it's kind of bullshit. Now, the next step would have been for TKO WWE have to get an injunction from a friendly judge saying that, like, essentially that, yes, this is a reasonable expectation, right? That, oh, yes, you did fire him with cause. You have evidence that you fired him with cause. And like the contract terms apply, we have to go into arbitration. Arbitration means that like you'd have to go in and negotiate and like you'd have to pay it and what now, right? Um, where it gets interesting is the problem is like once because WWE let him go and tried the dirty tricks, and then like when decided, oh, post facto, no, we fired him with cause. The problem with doing that is WWE then has to establish a paper trail
Yeah.
showing that they did fire. Like they need to show a series of drug tests and they need to show a series of evidence saying that, like, yes, we did fire him with cause on the contract enough to get a judge to sign off on it, right?
Yeah.
And they apparently, I don't think they did that because, again, the reason I think they didn't do that is because when Tony Khan was asked about Andrade on the presser for Dynasty, Wrestle Dream, he directly answered, yes, Andrade. I look forward to what Andrade is going to be doing in AEW next, which tells me that if there had been an injunction, then TK, I suspect, would have just gone like, no comment. I can't comment on that because there's a legal kind of matter going on that. But the way he commented tells me that, like, no, like that, I think that TK and Andrade pushed back and they had to get an injunction. They couldn't. And again, the other problem is like, so let's say WWE does push it, right? And like they could get an injunction. Let's say, oh, we're going to sue them over contract breach. TKO and WWE are allergic to discovery. Discovery means like we're getting to a lawsuit. Like there's a legal expectation that I can actually get information from you, right? And if you're saying that you fired Andrade with cause, then your emails and your internal documents are basically, as if I'm representing the person you're suing, I get to take a look at it. And I joke that like I could get WWE to settle any lawsuit if you give me 30 minutes of unfettered access to their emails, and I can get them to settle any lawsuit. Right?
Oh man,
you can tell what I'm going to search for. I'm just going to start going like, okay, and like effectively, like the other part I was saying like WWE is in the middle of getting sued by their shareholders right now this week. They're like doing depositions. So I know, I mean, like essentially, I think WWE and TKO kind of walked the path of like, let's bluff this. And I think the people they were trying to bluff went like, no, dog. And kind of like they had big, serious lawyers who went like, no. And again, because WWE didn't treat the entire. So if they decided they were going to fire Andrade with cause 6 months ago or a year ago and start documenting evidence for it, this would be a different thing because they could get a judge in Connecticut to kind of issue an injunction, and then you'd have to go into arbitration. And they do have kind of levers they can press in the U.S. government to kind of help them with that kind of thing to get into arbitration. But like if they didn't do that, which I assume they didn't do, right, and they don't have the documentation to do that, then essentially they had like they notified them. I think AEW and Andrade kind of cover themselves for like while WWE showed something else, but if they couldn't produce anything else, then nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you get where you are with this, right?
It's interesting. I'm thinking about all the things that TKO's involved in right now. We're talking about like I believe there was something called about we're talking about like on the DM. What were you calling it? Because it's going over like the full sale of like TKO to Endeavor to Silver something. It was called something.
So essentially a lot of that, like we were talking, you want to talk leverage buyouts now?
A little. We'll talk a little bit.
Okay, so the way people have to understand that there's a great movie on there's a movie on HBO from like the 80s, right?
Yeah.
If you have HBO, you can actually like go do it. It's called Barbarians at the Gate, right? And Barbarians at the Gate is about RJR Nabisco. And RJR Nabisco was bought out by like essentially it was bought out in a leveraged buyout, right? And what a leveraged buyout is essentially says it's like, I'm going to buy your company, but instead of buying it with real money or like with my money, I'm going to leverage the earnings of the company by taking a loan. So I'm going to get a bank to finance me based on the future earnings of the company, right? It's kind of like buying a house and getting a mortgage to buy the house a little bit, but it's a little bit funky because essentially what that means is when you fall into this loop, essentially, that means that like So when TKO buys WWE, they're leveraging the future earnings of WWE and taking on debt, right?
Yeah.
Which needs to be serviced, right? And what that means is essentially instead of WWE having clean books, they have their profit, but they also have like this debt that they now need to service on a monthly basis. Now, and if everything's growing consistently and there are no issues, then that's not a problem. But we know as wrestling fans that like wrestling is cyclical, right? So if there
Yeah.
comes a time when the business starts like downturning, which kind of maybe sort of is now, then you start getting into this world where like, oh shit, maybe I can't service this that. And then again, also, I mean, the way these companies work, they're essentially kind of like profit taking. So they go in, they leverage it, and then they like either sell it out piecemeal, profit, and move on to the next thing. So it is a bit tricky. So we are in the world where like Endeavor might sell these out to the Saudis, right? So they might just sell it
Yeah.
out to the next buyer, and the next buyer, and the next buyer, and the next buyer. This isn't like I was explaining this to somebody. This is like why like WWE can't compete with like TK on salary a little bit because
Ooh.
what I suspect happens is that Paul has a fixed budget. He has a fixed salary budget, which TKO doesn't care what he spends it on, but it's fixed. He can't, when I say fixed, it's like he has a number, a budget. He has to hit that budget.
Yeah.
So if he signs our truth to a regular contract, he needs to cut somebody else, right? Because he's like, I used to work in General Electric and we would get these, like you get a budget and that's your budget. Like you cannot spend more than that. Like if you have to cut off your arm to hit your budget, you cut off your arm and you give it to the finance guy, right? And then a lot of the things that WWE or is doing to me are explained, or in my brain are explained by the fact that what they're trying to do is they have a fixed salary budget, and then they want to get like this talent that isn't signed to that fixed salary budget, like the guys in TNA and the guys in AAA and the guys in WWID, which are guys that are like I control their booking.
Yeah.
Like they're contractors who I control the booking, but I don't pay them as full-time salary. And they're an expense on my books, not a salary on my books. So like the difference is
Hmm.
if I'm expensing you, right? So if you're not a fixed salary, then you're not against my salary budget. I'm just expensing you against the profit on a show. Right? Does that make sense to you? Like
Yeah.
essentially, like if you're an expense, it's like bringing in a contract. If I'm bringing in a temp, I'm basically putting that temp against my pet, like against my cash flow, not against my long term budget, right? And then that kind of plays into the whole leverage buyout thing and kind of like the debt because essentially you want to keep your overhead, like essentially a
Yeah.
fixed salary is overhead,
Yeah.
and the overhead is something that if you're in that buyout world, you want to keep your overheads low, right? So you're fine with contracting somebody out as like temp labor, not like regular wrestlers who are like contract. No, no, no. I mean, like, I'm talking about contracting a guy, like bringing in a guy for a shot, like bringing in a TNA guy for a shot doesn't count against my fixed overhead for running NXT, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of like, or like, so like that's the logic of the leverage. Like, there's a lot of other details that kind of at play, but effectively that's what's going on. And that's the difference between like having somebody like Tony, who Tony is operating his budget, I suspect, more like a sports team,
Yeah.
where they're like, if you look at the amount of the net that is being shared, like in basketball, football, the Premier League, it's going to be half. I mean, half it varies, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, half is going to the athletes, to the performers, and I think as long as TK I was running it, and I think this is the way he's running it based on the numbers I see. He's running in a way that, like, look, I'm going to spend this much on talent as reflective of my net, right? So he's going by his net, and he's basically paying out salary like he would in a sports situation, right?
Yeah.
And WWE can compete with that and doesn't want to because TKO is cheaper than. I mean, basically cheaper than anybody I think except like the WNBA. Like I think
Yeah.
maybe the WNBA is cheaper, but like,
Could-
but that's it. I mean, TKO's like
Yeah.
lost like federal cases that basically were based around no TKO is cheap to their
Yeah.
labor, right? So
And it's all
yeah, I mean,
documented on the court docket. Like I talk about TKO and all this stuff because they just announced Zuffa Boxing is going to be on the Paramount Network.
oh
Same with
god, yeah,
all of the TKO sports like UFC and whatever other leagues is on there. Because I think they're moving like basically the UFC streaming stuff is all moving to Paramount. And I bring that up because, Paramount this week had made their first offer towards the purchase of WBD. Of course, first offers are always going to be rejected. And of course, WBD, Zaza rejected that first offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think on that one is interesting because I don't think people are like going like the gloom and doom thing, but like I think ultimately, even if they get bought, even if WB gets bought out by Paramount, they're not cutting out a property that's making them money, right?
Yeah.
And this is ultimately where we are on AEW, where like I think again, like I think a lot of the problem right now is there's a lot of noise, the Nielsen stuff and all that other stuff. But ultimately, it's a property that's making people money. I mean, there are flaws, but
Definitely.
like it's profitable, and if that's the case, then it's not an issue. I mean, I think that the thing with Paramount and Warner is I do think ultimately I think Warner's fine because Warner's already like WWE. When I say Warner, they'd already like set up to spin off their debt, right? So essentially their debt
Yeah.
and like their dead weight, which was like the linear networks on the debt, was already getting spun off, and they were already kind of like leaving just the stuff that was making money. So they're in a really good position. I think NBC did the same thing with
Universal
spinning
and all
off
their
USA
properties.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that they're in a good position. I think Paramount was willing to pay for everything, but I think essentially my take is that Warner is give me a number like if you're gonna do this, give me a number that knocks my socks off. And if they don't get a number that knocks their socks off, then I think Saslav and Warner have already kind of positioned themselves in it like in a really good spot. They have their studios on a super win streak. Their movie studios on a
Definitely.
super win streak.
Yeah.
They've got like really friendly relationship with all their like talents. So they split off all of their debt. So they're like, they're not they're what I would say. I was joking that probably like Zaslav, they used to make fun of him, but he, likely one of the most successful like Hollywood execs of the last 5 years. Right? He's gotten to a point where
Agree.
like everything that people made fun of him for, no, he was right. He was correct. Right? He was
Cause
correct
oh
in doing
man,
all this stuff.
yeah, because like
Yeah.
they're over the last like 5 years, he was deemed like, oh, he's an idiot. He's cutting all this and that, but the stuff that he cut, now he's selling them off. I bet he's gonna make a lot of money when he sells.
He consolidated his TV stuff into like he had multiple TV studios. He ended up just consolidating
Yeah.
everything to HBO. He spun every like he they did the Max thing was probably a misfire, but then they went back to being HBO. They as I said, they cleaned up their studio process. They won a huge win streak with movies. They it's and again they're doing stuff. I remember like when the whole thing of the Batman show that they sold off to Amazon, which were like they were gonna initially like they were gonna do it in house and sell it in house, but he's like, no, fuck
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna sell it to someone who's gonna willing to pay for the IP because if I'm producing a show, then somebody needs to buy this show for me to produce. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like there's gotta be some sort of like it's he was doing like they were doing before like they were doing the WCW thing where like I'm doing this show and I'm shooting it and selling it to like myself and then like surprise when like the company goes bankrupt. It's like yeah, I mean like even if the company was a valuable product, if you're selling it to yourself, it's not right. So you figure out what does that make money and you kind of move it to that. And essentially, it's like it's a very wrestling thing in that like ultimately you got to operate. It's an entertainment business. Like if people aren't coming to see the shows and aren't willing to pay to see the shows, then you should be doing something different, right? Because again,
Definitely.
ultimately, we it needs to be art that connects, right? It's popular art, right? It's like it's got
Yeah.
to draw, and it is kind of getting back to like talking about WWE and all this stuff. It's like one of the risks with this kind of what WWE is doing by going behind paywalls and getting insulated from the customer is that you lose that connection to the fan, which ultimately is what makes the IP valuable, right? So, like, I think we talked about
Yeah.
this before, which is like one of the things that people forget is, I've talked about it with like Bugs Bunny and stuff, which like, hey, Bugs Bunny used to be on TV all the time, right? He used to be on like the Looney Tunes used to be on TV like everywhere. And I know that, like, essentially, like, they, put it behind paywalls, and it's like you have to pay to go see them. But essentially, you have to give people samplers if you want your IP to remain, like, if your IP isn't on TV or on broadcast or broadly available to people, it's not going to be valuable in 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to put that in front of the kids so that they seek it out in like 20 years. And that's like why ultimately I think, like, being on broadcast, right? Having those broadcast outlets it remains important, because you need to put that, it's like the NHL. The NFL is not gonna put all their games on pay, right? They're gonna have shows broadcast to the biggest possible audience, because they understand that that's how you make the product valuable, right? Like, that's like you have to, like, if you don't create fans, then people won't buy your tickets and won't buy your merch. That's kind of the hidden key to all this, right? I need people to, like, buy my product. If they don't buy the product, then what are we doing, right?
Hi, hello. This is Doc, and I have a special message from my friend MJ, who's looking to do some. It's nice to have a little scratch when your little fur baby's on the mend. So I'm gonna give the floor to the NB who you envy, MJ. Go ahead and take it away.
Hello. I am currently raising money basically for my cat needs a surgery in about a week's time, and although the operation is mostly funded, but it's just her aftercare and medication and things. We just want to make sure that we've kind of got enough for that and stuff to make sure she's taken care of. But I've just got a tip jar on Kofi or Coffee, however you want to pronounce it, which is at co-fee.com/rassletrash. And also, I've got a shirt for sale on there with the Lucha Boo. My cat is called Boo, and it's got a little luchador wearing a luchador mask wearing cat on there, and it's very cute, and you should buy one. But yeah, any help is very much appreciated. Uh, but if not, that's also fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the reins here and say no. Make sure that this gets all paid for. Please donate as much as you can, as much as you want, but please donate. Do what you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me as well. I've had a lovely time.
And on with the show. This is it.
So this is it.
Oh man, I love Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
So, we talked about Andrade a little bit. We talked about, Ultimo Monet or Ultimone. And, something happened this week. WWE was on tour in Japan. They did less numbers than Marigold. They did less numbers than Stardom at Sumo Hall. But, something interesting happened at the end of Sumo Hall. You know, one of the famed, legendary WON Hall of Fame member, Shinsuke Nakamura, and for more on that, please listen to the State of Wrestling, Wrestling Observer News, Hall of Fame 2025 ballot overview, because now we have released historical Mexico and Japan. Please listen to them, take them in, learn some history, and enjoy it. But back to the show. So WWE did a tour. Nakamura was on that tour. And at the end of the show, like, Nakamura did his promo, hit him with a yow, but he also hit them with Aishimasu, which is I love you all. Um, I'm practicing a little bit of my Japanese here and there. But like, Aishimasu is the catchphrase of one President Ace. And, President Ace, of course, responded on Twitter with, did I hear my name? And, so right now the scuttlebutt, and this is all just, contemplation, predictions. We don't have any inside info, nothing like that. But like, this is a match that I've been sort of like hoping for because I'm a big fan of that era, even like the 2000s era because we talk about guys like John Cena and Randy Orton having that match at a pay-per-view. And like in Japan, that same kind of like relationship was between Nakamura and Tanahashi, but Nakamura is an actual star, unlike Randy Orton. And so to have him, and then his contract's been sort of like, I think like back during WrestleMania, they said, "Oh, he's not resigning, he's not coming back. We're not going to use him anymore." But at the end of the summer, they started bringing him back. And now they're putting him in programs with the Bloodline. So who knows, right? Who knows? So for him to go ahead and say Aishimas, and then for Tanahashi to reply, that sort of like sets up in the air, like could something happen? Because I think about to 2023, right? Carl Anderson has the never open weight belt, and then he wrestles on Wrestle Kingdom, loses to Tama Tonga. Tama comes over to WWE anyway. But like we have an interesting situation here, and I want to hear your take.
I think okay, so my take is probably I think Tanahashi probably wants it, Nakamura probably wants it, but nobody like both of them have control, and it relies on TKO not being an asshole. So I think like ultimately, I think New Japan has multiple plans in place, and that's why they haven't said anything. And I don't think you're going to get any clarification anytime soon because, like, when do you trust that like TKO won't fuck you? If they tell you they're going to deliver, when do you trust that they're not going to fuck you?
Yeah.
Right? And ultimately, I mean, I think that there are multiple people that promotional partners can provide, right, which could effectively deliver at the level. Like, I mean, people are gonna say, "Oh, but yeah, I mean, like, you could probably do Okada, you could do Kenny, you could do like, there's other names you can bring on the board. Like you were saying, Shibata. I think Shibata on a New Japan show would probably be an insurance issue, right? I think that's why you got him. You got him at the show that was not a New Japan show technically, and that's how you got him. And even then, you only got him in an exhibition, right?
Definitely.
So I don't think you can not. I don't think you can get Shibata on a New Japan show proper.
No,
right?
I
And
definitely
I don't
think
think it's necessarily. I think it might be a settlement issue more than anything else. So I think it might be a legal issue where you cannot do it, right?
yeah, and I definitely think that that he's on the docket for Three Musketeer stuff, all of that. But I definitely think that somebody like a Shibata, but I was thinking for me because ladies and gentlemen, we had this Dragon Gate special come out just recently, and I think you guys should check that out. That's the State of Wrestling with Problematic Dragon. And what's joining us from Certified WrestleCast is Ed, and we go ahead and discuss Dragon Gate. So, and was the ongoing renown for Dragon Gate. So, like, what my personal get for that show would be Yuki Yoshioka. The inheritor of the High Fly Flow, and you want to talk somebody being able to bring Tanahashi up to the past level, man. Yoshioka, man, with the high fly flow, that that's and imagine if Yoshioka beats him with the high fly flow that he inherited from the master. That
No, I
would
mean, I
be
think
insane.
you're gonna no, you're gonna get. It's
I'm a
gonna be a
pipe
big
dream guy.
name, right?
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. I
It's gonna
have a
be
big pipe dream.
yeah, it's gonna be a big name. I think again, I do think that they want Nakamura, but the logistics of getting WWE one to sign off on it and trust that they won't screw you at the last minute. Like I don't. I mean, like him showing like getting Nakamura for the Muto thing, right? Again, did rely obviously on Muto coming in and doing the like obviously Muto kind of like a lot of things happened, right? And I think also in that particular exercise, kind of Vince was involved and whatever you think about Vince McMahon, I think ultimately the people, I think if Vince gave his word that it was going to happen, people trusted that it was going to happen. Whereas with TKO, I don't think there's any level of trust that anything that TKO says is valid and they won't screw you, right? So effectively, that means that, like, and never mind the fact that, like, if you do business with TKO, how pissed are your Mexican partners and other people going to be? Because I mean, like, there's real animus towards them. Now, again, I think you could maybe pull it off. I mean, Tanahashi doing maybe the WWE Hall of Fame thing later and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, but again, the amount of political things, like the amount of balls that need to land for you to make this happen, are such that I suspect that there's a plan B, plan Z, and plan D. I mean, I think this is probably why we don't have more clearance on what's happening with Takeshita. This is why we don't know, like, is Kenny going to be involved in some way or fashion, and like, is he working some sort of match? Like, there's a lot of balls and people moving around that may be in place for that we're not going to know, because I think that they don't want to put up a show. They don't want to put up a main event that they can't guarantee, right? I think that's ultimately the thing. And the draw is Tanahashi's last match, independent of whether or not it's like who it's with, right? There are other people it could be with where it wouldn't be like if it's Tanahashi Kenny, or if it's Tanahashi Naito, or if it's Tanahashi like Okada, like you can still draw at the level that you would with Nakamura, and ultimately it is a safer, and like the people, like those matches you could make happen without nobody fucking you, right? So that's kind of, that ultimately is the, like, maybe they can, but I don't know that you can trust WWE. I don't know that you can take WWE at their word. Right? That's ultimately, I think, if you're in the position like New Japan is in, as nice as the Nakamura thing would be, I don't know that you can risk it, and you can't risk the hit possibly to your card, right? And again, they wouldn't be the bad guy in the situation, but you don't promise that and don't deliver. I think, again, there's matches you can promise and deliver on that would be safer than that. Maybe it does happen. Maybe I'm wrong. But like, I think ultimately the reason this has taken a while and hasn't been announced is I think they want it. I don't think that I don't think they can make it happen as easily as they want with WWE in the middle. If Tanahashi was not, sorry, if Nakamura was not if he was a free agent, then this would be like dead simple, right? And again, I don't count out, my take would be don't count out Naito, because I think if they can't get Nakamura, I think Naito's might be the easiest thing they could do. Just bring back Naito, have Naito show up and have him be the match for Tanahashi. Right, it might not be a great match unless he's had unless he's gotten gone to Europe and got new knees, which is possible. But like again, I mean, there are other matches I think would be kind of on the level of Nakamura and wouldn't require you putting that much of your reputation at risk at the You're essentially you need Paul and WWE to be the good guy here, and that's I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, because you know what clip went viral over this week, right? So this weekend was like WWE Australia Crown Jewel. John Cena, AJ Styles had a pretty good, greatest hits match, right? It was pretty good. And then at the end of the show, what's been going viral around like the WWE fans is hashtag We Want Edge, because the fans are seeing the Edge team when Triple H was like, they're asking Triple H like, who do you think is next for the John Cena tour? And all the Australians, on this day I see clearly, and then that started trending and went viral online. And I know
I think
people are making jokes about that,
the
about Edge coming in.
The more likely situation is you get break the walls down for Cena.
Yeah.
But yes, you might get Jericho for Cena, but like again, I was like joking, maybe it's Jericho for like Tanahashi, like joking with something like, hey, maybe it's Jericho.
Maybe. I mean, he could do the honors for them, get that win back. But this is all interesting stuff. Like,
ultimately, I think that I think that Tanahashi wants it. Probably the problem with this is I think Tanahashi wants Nakamura. I think
yeah,
Nakamura wants to be there, but there are some significant hurdles to make this happen. And I think ultimately, and I said this, like if it was Vince, it would probably. I mean, we know because it happened with Muto. I think it has been done, but it was done in a different regime effectively. Like I'm trying to remember, like when was it
yeah,
when
because
did
Muto and Nakamura was 2023, so Vince McMahon was in control then.
right? So effectively, Vince was still the guy putting the handshake on, and effectively, I think that they they honored whatever agreement they made. And again, I don't know that you can kind of look at like at me, like it's me pointing at a fire and going like, can you trust that? And again, I think ultimately, and it gets down to this: New Japan does Tanahashi retirement match does not need Nakamura. Would it be nice? Sure, but does he need it? No. You can find another match that is probably on the level that could still he can get other people on there. I said I said Kenny. I said you can kind of like Naito. I said Okada, right? Although that one also probably has some political hurdles, some other things going on with that one. But there are other names that you could bring in that would not require you putting that much of your goodwill at risk at the will of WWE, right? That's my feel on it. Again, if it was Vince, I think you could probably make it happen. I don't know that here. Maybe it does, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does. I would not trust it if I were them, and I think that's why we've been so coy and we've waited so long for we're what? We got what 10 weeks out? We're less than 10 weeks out from Wrestle Kingdom, right? So it sounds crazy, but yeah, it's
part of the build now is who is he gonna fight, and I think that they're kind of using that to their advantage because the inching now is who is he fighting, and now it can be anybody. And if I'm New Japan, that's smart because you don't have anybody locked down. And to what you were saying earlier, like they have a lot of balls and a lot of things are in their court where they can always flip the switch and say like, oh no, it's always been this way. They love doing those silhouette promos.
If we're writing all the wrongs, I mean, it probably just be Naito, right? Just have it be Naito and assume that Naito got his eye fixed, right? I know he was getting a bunch of things fixed. One of these things fixed, and
he got his eye fixed,
Naito and
his knees. I think he was in Mexico for like 3-4 months. So seeing his children.
Yeah, so so just bring him in and again, I think this is again, this is my Naito diatribe where Naito basically needs to start working like the older Mexican dudes where he switches to a more Java style. He can still do the Destino, but he can't do the Destino as can't spam the Destinos. He needs to do the Destinos, do it once or twice at most in a match, and then just do Javas and other stuff during the matches. Work like an older, the Jericho Jericho's actually a good example of what he should have done because Jericho actually did figure out how to work his style much slower and then added moves like the Judas effect, which is a move that is it looks good, but it's also low impact.
Because Naito does have La Pluma Blanco, that Koji clutch that he does. That's pretty cool. I mean, because he does have he does do a lot of submission holds when he wants to. A lot of lucha pins.
Work it. Go out and work like a Cicero, man. Work a Java style. Blue Panther, man. Do that shit because essentially, if you do that, then you can get another 10 years out of that. But you can't keep doing Destinos like a crazy person. But you cannot keep doing that because
we
I
see
get
what
it.
happened with
for leather, but
we see what happened with Tanahashi. He could have taken it easy. He got the Turks' Cloverleaf over as a finish, but he said, "No, I'm just gonna keep doing the high fly flow," and now he walks like Matt Hardy. And we talk about hypotheticals, right? We talk about hypothetical, this guy, that guy, that guy. But I like to live in the now, and I'm so happy to have the Alpha, Konosuke Takeshita, finally finish the story and win the IWGP World Heavyweight title from a company that didn't want him when he was 8 years old, and they missed out.
See, I was joking with someone. I said, like, you know what they need to do now is we need to get his V0 on Collision, right? So have it on Collision. He needs to have an open challenge, and he brings out he's going to wrestle an old rival, and so we're going to get Takeshita and Yoshihiko for the V0. Yeah, on Collision. Yeah, do like Yoshi, like and because we need Yoshihiko. Like, have you ever seen his match? Like the cinematic match he did with it's I think it's
Yeah,
like well like it's really funny.
dude. Cause like I love the VTR they made with him where he kept getting called a big baby by Yuka. Um, cause like it kind of went like into like what his mindset is. Cause he's like, and I think I said the pictures to you. Like he's like, we're not just competing with wrestling. We're competing with Demon Slayer. We're competing with with movies. We're
Yeah.
competing with TV. Which is that's the old adage of WWE when they were saying what they're competing against, and I think that's on purpose. Because like he's thinking bigger picture, which that's after my own heart of looking at the bigger picture than just staying in one little tiny bubble. But you're thinking about like what's the real goal here? His real goal is to establish pro wrestling to be on the same level as movies, as TV shows, as something as popular as Demon Slayer. And now I know that he watched Demon Slayer in the movie theaters. That was pretty cool, the Infinity Castle. But like I think he's going to be a great ambassador, honestly, for the company. He has the exact look that you would want. Like if you're holding a wrestling company and you want someone that looks like a wrestler, has the size of a wrestler, talks with confidence, and you could send them out anywhere to do like any press conference and any of that. Because he was prepared to
I
do that
worry.
by DDT, and I think but I don't think like he has the political backing in that company to really get that push that he would need.
My worry is that he is on limited dates,
Yeah.
and that they don't necessarily want to like. Essentially, he might be on essentially he might be on limited dates, and he might be like holding it just through Wrestle Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So, which is why I mean, like, this is like some of that my argument. Like, and it goes go watch a video segment of the Don Callis birthday party with like Okada's doing like some of the best work he's done for a while, where he's just like doing the big mad.
Oh man.
Like, he's just mad that Takeshi should have won, and like I think there's like to me there's real potential in. I've said this that eventually Okada's going to go back to New Japan as a face, right? He's going to go back to New Japan as a face, the retirement run, prepping him and his wife to do the talk show circuit on which is they do talk show circuits on TV in Japan, and that's how they make a living. And I think now you could get him as a heel. Now you can get him as kind of come back and be a guy who kind of helps you. And again, like I need someone to be a dominant champion and just go scorched earth on that roster for 6 months, right? Just what Moxley did, just beat the crap out of all the geeks, right? Like all the geeks and all the El Phantasmos and the Okons and like anybody who's like just basically just squash everybody, just clean house, squash everyone, and then get ready to whoever's going to be next, like climb up. Because I think the biggest problem that roster has right now is that they're all geeks, right?
Yeah.
And it's
God, like
you need to
that War Dogs and unaffiliated, like giving each other like high fives. That was such a loser segment.
No, I mean you need to basically kind of like clean house and then have somebody build themselves back up to win, which is actually like again, I've come to think that the Mox Death Rider storyline was perfect because it did that. You cleaned house, you got rid of all the geeks, right? You not, and I mean like essentially like all the stale old acts, all the kind of like scene, you cleared it out, you reestablished the pecking order. People kind of came up and like had to step up to a different level, and now you really look at that roster and nobody's in the wrong place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because and then like everyone's got a book to the right level. You have a lot of like really exciting kind of matches, and it's a roster that makes sense. And I think that like whereas like if you look at that New Japan roster, you have like just a blob and there is no differentiation, and there are no like even a guy like Zach who's I love Zach. I think Zach's but he wasn't booked in a way that made him kind of a strong main eventer, right? Or like Goto, not even Hiroki Goto either. So you want to kind of do something where like you reset, and that's I think what you kind of need to do. And I was kind of hoping they were going to do it with this. Like I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know who they think is going to be champion in February. Like now, the hardcores will say, "Hey, they're going to do double belt, and it's going to be Suji." But my thing with Suji is that Suji needs to, like, I jokingly call him the dessert pitchman, because he's like going out on desks like that Marlowe dessert. It's like, it's like you're asking me to take a guy who's dressing
Chef
like
Boyardee.
like the Colonel. You fried chicken, seriously. Like it's like, dude, you need to if he's going to be the guy, then he needs to present himself like the guy. And I'm reminded of the whole thing with like Flair and Evolution in WWE, where he got these guys and he got them wearing tailored suits, and he got them presenting themselves a certain way. He got Batista presenting himself a certain way. He got like Randy presenting himself a certain way. He got Triple H presenting himself a certain way. You have to kind of present yourself as like a top guy. And like for some reason, the Mexican top guys always nail this, and it's like the meme of the Mexican wrestler with this tailored suit, like the tailored suit and the mask, right? So you have to present yourself as kind of a star. Like you have to have that aura. And I think no one right now has it. And I think Suji could have it, but he needs to present himself in a much more serious way. Right? Doesn't mean he can't be babyface, but like it's like look at Hangman. Hangman presents himself like he goes out, you see him, he's the guy, right? You see him, the crowds go wild because he presents himself at a certain level. And I think someone, and I don't know who, right? Somebody on that roster needs to set them up to that level. And I think that's the story that needs to be told in the next 6 months or next year to get there. And like, again, maybe it's Suji, but I stand by, if it's going to be Suji, then he needs to present himself he needs to present himself as a main eventer, as a champion, right?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? It's like,
because the guy that
it's the way you carry yourself.
Yeah, the guy that got that kind of presentation was like Aaron Wolf, coming in and destroying House of Torture. He looked like a guy, to me, and that crowd did react to him. Uh, and I think like what we have here is we have a lot of guys with potential. It's just like we have a booking committee that we all don't trust to follow through on giving anybody anything. Like,
I mean, if it's gonna be Takeshita, then give him a crowning victory at Wrestle Kingdom, and then have him hold that belt. And I would probably have him go through all, like do the one of like what was it, Yamato, who went through everyone in Dragon. Like just have him go through everyone, just have him beat everyone, have him do everyone clean and strong, and then you use that, and then like somebody has to rebuild to get there, right? Because but essentially, if you're gonna present him like that, it's going back to the classics. This is Starrcade 1. This is Ric Flair and Harley Race. To be the man, you have to beat the man, right?
Yeah.
But you need to have the man, right? So you need to establish the man. The man needs to exist. Harley Race needed to exist as the man for Ric Flair to beat the man. You know what I'm saying? So Flair had to kind of turn himself into the guy that could beat the guy, right? And I think ultimately you need to get both these things together. And I thought Zach could be the guy, but they didn't book Zach as that dominant kind of EO guy who's bending these youngsters around, and kind of like they couldn't get one over because the old man still had a bunch of tricks. And they haven't done that. And you need that, right? You need that heavy heel heat kind of guy. So then somebody can come in and like kind of grow themselves like Hangman and beat it, right? Or Flair beating a Race. Like you need that kind of target. And again, I'm just kind of looking at it. It's like if everyone's just a dweeb, then nobody's going to become the ace, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
It's really hard, right?
It's so ridiculous, I mean, like, looks like they're kind of trying with the Drilla Maloney kind of beating Sonata as he did. Man, Sonata wrestled like Puerto Rico, man. He brought out the forks.
Yeah.
He bladed in 10 minutes, and they did a walk and brawl. And where was this Sonata? Where was Puerto Rico Sonata, man? This is FMW Sonata.
You know what? I have a soft spot for him because he tries. I mean, like I know he like, but he tries, right? I respect it. He tries
Yeah.
it and he mixes it up. It's I don't know. I mean, like the person I'm most excited in that roster right now probably is Ice, right?
Yeah, dude. He has
And, like
he
it's
has
kind of
such
funny
big
that like
charisma.
those tag matches with him and
Oscar.
Oscar and Yuya and supposedly Shota's. You know that I somebody was telling me that Shota was booking the tag matches, was booking the tag division. And I was like, really? And because like the best part, it's probably like I'm seeing those matches, and I'm like, yeah, it's interesting. He's like Yuno's getting like shit out of like Yuya, and it's kind of interesting and exciting. And yeah, that's kind of what you need to be doing. And then obviously like they'll probably put him and geek him out to like a member of the house or something. But like,
Ah,
but effectively, that's you need to establish someone, right? And then you need to establish someone so that like the chase means something, right? If that makes
yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah. Well, like, when I think about this stuff, it kind of reminds me of, I think someone had brought this up before on my show where we're talking about like WWF in 96, 97, where 98, where like, Bret Hart worked with guys, Shawn Michaels worked with guys, but those guys like disappeared. But they both had done programs with Stone Cold to get him to the next level. And, the guys like Undertaker were working with, Mankind, getting him to the next level so that he could be challenging Stone Cold as like one of the first challengers. And, Rock and Triple H were moving up the card also, but they had also worked, programs with Stone Cold. And that was just relying on guys who they had, and they were able to build like from there. But right now, it should be the same kind of like situation right now. But what I compare this to the current roster is like Noah 2013 because, Kobashi retired, Akiyama wasn't really doing. He went to Akiyama went to All Japan, Kobashi retired, Taue retired, Masawa had passed away. And Morishima and Kenta don't really pan out as the top guys. Marufuji doesn't really pan out as the top guy. And so we're just left with a bunch of losers, and that's kind of what we have right now is like 2013 Noah, which is sort of depressing to see where the heights of like New Japan was like even like 6 years ago, even 5 years ago, even last year. I mean, 3 years ago. Like it's sort of weird to see where they're at now compared to where they were like a couple like just 2, 3 years before. But it just goes to show you then you have the sort of like turnover that they've had when we're talking about the big stars like Okada and Naito. Hopefully Naito does return. I see that happening. I see him just taking this time off because they told him to take a big pay cut. Like he had already taken multiple pay cuts to stay there. And like obviously they didn't value him as much as he thought he was worth. And you know, things are what they are, and who knows what'll happen in the future. But I'm pretty stoked like Takeshita being champion. I'm pretty stoked that he got this level, he got his world title. And will this be the impetus for Tony Khan to finally push him on his TV? Maybe, maybe not. But for now, like I see this guy as someone that you can push, someone that you can present out there as the man. And like I think part of the VTR that was selling him is Stop Takeshita, and he was talking about he wants to be the unclimbable wall that nobody can overcome. And they're selling Shota and Tsuji as the two guys who are going to come out and get him because Shota had actually beaten him in the G1. And of course, Tsuji had eliminated him last year in the G1. So we still have that match, that rematch in their back pocket, those rematches in their back pocket. They have the Goto match going right now. So wherever they land at for Wrestle Kingdom, I'm stoked for whoever's there. For me, I would love for it to be Mr. Okada, Okada Takeshita, but there's politics definitely
I
there.
mean, I think it's all down to the dominoes, and I think it comes down to like, okay, so the Nakamura, like, if the Nakamura things happen, then it moves everything else around, right? I
Yeah,
do think that they have things that they're trying to seed, and then based on that, you kind of move everything else. I mean, it could even be a Zachary match. I mean, like, who knows? I mean, you can. There's
knows?
ways you can go to get there. Although I think that's probably not where they're going. But we don't know what Zach is doing. Like initially, I know they were talking about him for Wolf, but that's not on the table. So Wolf is doing the house, and then we don't know what Tana's doing. And Suji was talking about the double championship thing, but that's not confirmed. So
Yeah.
right. So
Who knows?
it's gonna be interesting, right?
Who knows? Yeah, that's also interesting. Is sort of like there's these many directions, and that's what I liked at the end of King of Pro Wrestling is we have choose your own story, right? Choose your own adventure style booking right now, or they could go with the IWGP title, where they could go with the global, where they could go with the tag team. The junior division right now is sort of a wash. I do like how we have some Dragon Gate guys in the junior tag league. Although it is funny you that they split up D Courage because if D Courage was a team in there, they'd have to win. Uh, but politics is politics, and Yamato and Tiger Mask being an old man team is pretty cool to me, honestly. And that's not. I'm not really in for the junior tag league because usually they have like these announcements for it. Like I kind of hope that the crew would have been announced for it, but they've been sort of MIA for the past month or so. But that's what's happening right now. You're on the back end of this. You're gonna hear our thoughts on AEW Dynasty, which took place over on Saturday, and it was a pretty big show, and you're gonna hear our thoughts on that. And for this part of the show, I want to thank Numbers for joining me, and maybe he'll join us over also on the review because we do love our review panels on this show, and I know my audience really does love the panels. So you know, go as it's just me and Arturo right now. I'm gonna give him his plug. Go to American Numbers on X. He has these projections for like NBA season, NFL season, and get those credits, brother. Get that basketball money. Get that football
Yeah,
money.
there we go. That makes sense. That makes sense. And as I said, like I think that we're looking forward. I mean, I'm looking forward to the show. But I'm a big Joe Mark, so I'm looking forward to the show. And let's see how it goes. Y vamos a ver si estoy en el panel después con Doc y con el resto de sus invitados.
Let's go.